Paul ended his kind of treaty on relationships in this way. He said, I'm saying this for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in a right way in undivided devotion to the Lord. I think the theme that's ran throughout everything we've talked about this series is Paul just encouraging us and challenging us to keep God at the center. As Tony said earlier, to put God first in your life and put God first in your relationship. And that's what Paul's kind of closing with here. I want you to live in devotion to the Lord. When I was engaged, someone showed me a picture that I've kind of carried with me throughout my marriage, and it's probably the one thing that's impacted my relationship more than anything else. And it's just a triangle, and it's just a simple triangle. And on that triangle, there's three people involved, and I think in any marriage, there's three people. You have God at the top, you have you or me at the bottom right, and then you have your spouse. And see, what happens a lot of times in relationships is we get very focused on the horizontal, don't we? Like our marriage is strained right now, our relationship is strained, and so we focus on how to fix it. Sometimes we focus on trying to change the other person, don't we? Like if they would just get their act together, everything would be better. And we get so focused, sometimes consumed on the horizontal. It's like, how do we love one another better? How do we communicate better? What's his needs? What's her needs? What's our love languages? Now, there's space for that. There's nothing wrong with that. But what Paul is saying, and what Paul has been saying, is that's not the main thing. That's a secondary thing. I want you to be fully devoted to God. And so one of the things I've realized about my marriage is that when Courtney and I, at the bottoms of that triangle, when we are focused on God, and as we both grow in our relationship to God, just by the nature of a triangle being the way it is, as we both get closer to God, we get closer to each other. Right? That's just how it works. And Courtney and I, the times that we get in fights, the times we have conflict, is when we take our focus off of God and we start looking at ourselves and we start focusing on each other. Things just don't go as well then. And I've never had God, as I've grown in my relationship with God and journeyed with Jesus, I've never had, anything that God has led me to do, or as I've matured in my faith, it's never drawn me apart from my wife. It's always brought me closer to her. And so this is a picture of what Paul is talking about, what he's been talking about throughout this entire series, is I want you to be devoted. I want you to be devoted to the Lord. Because if you are devoted to the Lord, if you keep God at the center, as you mature and as you grow and as you pursue Jesus, your marriage will strengthen. You will become a better spouse, even if your spouse is doing nothing. Even if they aren't even following Jesus at all. If you pursue Jesus and as you get closer to Him, your relationship will be in a better place. Now, if you're single, you don't have a triangle, do you? It's just a straight line, right? It's just you and God. But if you are single, the more you pursue God, the more you mature in your faith, the closer you get to Jesus, the more like Jesus you become. You will be preparing yourself to be a better spouse. You will be preparing yourself for a healthier relationship. You will be preparing yourself because God knows what your future spouse, their issues and their weaknesses. And God knows the things in your character He needs to shape and mature and maybe change. And so it's not about finding the right person, but it's about focusing on God and being devoted to God and becoming the right person. And so if you're single, it's the exact same thing. Be fully devoted to the Lord and let God work in your life.